Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about writing emotional scenes and the 3 important things that I think need to go into when you're writing an emotional scene and how to kind of build that tension and emotion in your writing. And I'm also going to be unboxing the brand new Scribbler subscription box right here. So this box was actually made by 2 writers who liked all the book subscription boxes but wanted one that was geared more towards writers, and they couldn't really find one out there, so they made one themselves. This is the very first box, so I'm super excited to unbox it and show you guys what's inside. So when I was thinking about what I put into my writing to make the scenes emotional or to kind of elicit some emotion from my readers, I tried to think about some of my favorite books that do that. The number 1 book that came to my mind that made me like cry the most or feel the most emotion was actually My Sister's Keeper. That one I remember, I don't know if any of you have read it before, I felt like I sobbed through the entire book. It was just a really emotional story about a girl who was basically born so that she could help her sister who had cancer. Her parents kind of knew that having a sibling would be able to help with like blood transfusions and transplants and things like that. And you're kind of following along with her story as she's basically living to help keep her sister alive. And this was just a really emotional story. And so I tried to, as I was coming up with a list of my 3 top tips to make an emotional scene, I was kind of gearing it off of that just because I know that that's something that that's a book I think about a lot when I am writing my own emotional scenes and trying to take advice from that book and other emotional books that I've read. Like I said, I do have kind of 3 main tips that I think help create a really emotional scene. So you guys can kind of take this as, the tips are kind of broad. You can take bits and pieces with it. You don't have to, obviously this isn't like a foolproof way of writing emotional scenes, but here's kind of my process when I'm writing an emotional scene. The number 1 thing is to make your characters relatable to your readers. And I know that might seem like common sense, or like of course you want your characters to be relatable, but if you have like a really flat character or they're just not really doing anything that readers can relate to, they're not going to be emotionally invested. So your main protagonist, you want to develop to be somebody that readers really can relate to, and they know, even if it's not an experience that they've gone through, this character is so well-rounded and that you've given enough details about this character that readers really like, they're invested. They like this character and they're going on this journey with them. And the best way to do that is through your character development and making sure that, you know, you're giving enough backstory to your character and you're giving them enough hobbies and interests and just little details like that that make your character stand out to readers and make them really want to believe in them and follow them. And another main way to make your scenes even more emotional is, on the opposite end of that, is through your antagonist. So if you have a protagonist that your readers are really like, they're following and they support and they're like, okay, I'm rooting for this person, the best way to create an emotional response in your readers is to have a strong villain against that person. And if you have done your work and your protagonist is strong enough that your readers are like 100% on board, anybody that you put against them, they're going to be against. So the villain in your story is going to be just anybody who's going against that protagonist. And that could be somebody who just gets in a fight with them over something that they're doing, or just somebody who's kind of getting in the way of what your main protagonist is trying to accomplish. And that's what's going to give that initial conflict in your story, and that will build throughout. And as long as your reader has a connection to that protagonist, they are going to feel anger, sadness, all those emotions whenever they are being pushed against by the protagonist. The next tip, the second tip that I have for making an emotional scene, is having each separate scene tell a story. So your novel is going to have a broad overreaching story, but each scene should tell a small story. So you want to have conflict and tension in each scene where your characters are kind of going from one emotion to the next. And when you have that play on emotions, it really helps to build that tension and keep your readers feeling what your characters are going through and really engaging them in the story. Last but not least, but the third tip for writing an emotional scene is to take advice from your own life, or kind of feel the emotions that you felt. So when you're writing an emotional scene and you are trying to get those emotions across to your readers, the best way to do it is to remember a time when you were sad, or remember a time that you were really angry, and take those emotions and translate them into the scene. It doesn't even need to be like the same type of situation, but like if you think of a time that you were super down, how are you feeling? And not just like, of course you're feeling sad and down, but how were you feeling physically? Using those physical descriptors in your writing to talk about, you know, was when you were really angry, was your heart racing? Did you feel your blood start to boil? Like those physical descriptors help your readers relate to what your character is going through, because they remember a time when they were angry or they were sad and they felt those physical responses. And when you describe that for your character, you're going to elicit an emotional response in your readers, and you're going to make that scene really stand out and remind them of a time when they were feeling that way, which I think is a great way to have your readers relate to what you're writing and to kind of elicit that emotional response. On the opposite end of that, you don't want to include too many details. You don't want to be like, first my heart started racing and then I felt my pulse quicken, and like that sort of thing. If you have too many details, you're going on and on, that can be boring to your readers. You want it to be just enough where they're feeling that emotional response, but it's not like drawn out. Yeah, so those are my 3 tips for writing an emotional scene. Now obviously each one of these tips can be kind of drawn out, and there are other factors that you can include when writing emotional scenes, but I think these 3 are key to kind of get you started in working through different emotions and writing those scenes in your novel. So now I want to get to my my Scribbler box and do a little unboxing video for you guys. Each Scribbler box is going to have a different theme for writers to kind of develop those skills. So the theme for this box was emotional touch points. So I'm going to go through and see what all the different goodies that are in here and what book they have to go along with that. So the very first thing I have here is a little poster. Oh, this is cute. It says, I will write 500 words and I will write 500 more. Can't help but like not sing it when I'm putting that. That's really cute. I might hang that on my wall. There's a little confetti in here. And then there's a little note from the creators of Scribbler about their very first box. So that's a nice little touch. So they're kind of welcoming everyone to Scribbler. Look at all these cute little goodies. This is a little decal. It says #writer. Then there's just some instructions on how to put the decal on whatever you want to put it on. That's really cute. I like that. Little mini highlighters. These are adorable. I guess I like these highlighters a lot. You can use them when you're writing to kind of mark down any important scenes or something like that, or while you're reading, when you've come across an emotional scene or something that you want to remember for when you're writing. I really like these little highlighters. Then there's a bookmark, and it looks like the bookmark is from the author of the book that's in here. So it's Bridget Kemmerer, and I guess she's the author of Letters to the Lost. Not sure if that's the book that's in here, but here's a little bookmark of that. And these are cute little word count typewriter stickers. So I guess when you're writing, you can fill in your word count. I really like those. Oh, and here's a little clue for next month's box. Which is April, so the theme for April is going to be point of view. So that's cool that they put that in here. And here's a little description of everything else that's in this box and what it can be used for. And here is the Scribbler Writing Passport. So each box that they send out, they're going to include this writing passport that kind of talks through the theme for this box and what they were going for when they were putting this box together. And there's also some notes in there from the author of the book that they chose. So that's really cool. You can kind of flip through and see what they were aiming for through this book. And oh, this is really cool. There's a little pencil case in here from the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. And then there's a little quote on the back that says, "Hope, you cannot steal it and you cannot break it." I like that a lot. Nice. And last but not least is the book. More Than We Can Tell by Bridget Kemmerer. So I haven't read this book before. I actually just saw it in the library and I thought it looked interesting, and I'm kind of glad now that I didn't pick it up because here it is. So let's just read the synopsis really quick so we can see what this story is about. Rev has managed to keep the demons of his past at bay until he gets a letter from the abusive father he hasn't seen in years, and the trauma of his childhood comes hurtling back. Emma has only one escape from her parents' fighting, the computer game she built from scratch, until an online troll's harassment causes her to fear for her safety. When Rev and Emma cross paths one night, they're both longing to confide in someone, to share the weight of their worries. They connect instantly and deeply, vowing to keep each other no matter what. But soon Rev's and Emma's secrets threaten to crush them, and they'll need more than a promise to find their way out. In an achingly beautiful story from the author of Letters to the Lost, two teens find the courage to lift the burden of their scars, old and new. So I did know that this book was a YA, but that description kind of spells it out for you as well. I'm super excited to read this. I know just from the synopsis I just read, you can tell there is definitely going to be a lot of emotions in the story as these teens are kind of battling through what they've got going on with their parents. So I'm excited to see the different emotional touch points throughout that book and kind of look for those 3 tips that I was talking about in the beginning of the video to see any of those techniques that were used throughout the story. So if you guys enjoyed this unboxing video, please let me know, because I definitely would like to keep doing them. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for stopping by.